All right, get ready to dive deep today because we're tackling a topic that I think is both super intriguing and honestly could be life-changing for a lot of us. We're talking about the link between authenticity and this idea of magnetism, like attracting things into your life. And our main source for this deep dive is an excerpt from a motivational speaker named Erin Lyons.
Oh.
And let me tell you, her take on this whole thing, it's pretty mind-blowing. She goes way beyond that basic be yourself advice. She really digs into the how and the why of authenticity. And get this, she connects it to everything from your relationships to actually manifesting the things you want in life.
It's fascinating stuff, really. Lyons argues that authenticity, it's not just about feeling good, like some internal thing. She sees it as this powerful energy, almost like you become a magnet for what you genuinely want.
Okay, I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
How does that even work? I mean, she talks about high frequency vibration, and that sounds a little, woo-woo to me, but I'm open to it, so what's the practical side of all that?
Well, Lyons explains it using this analogy of a tuning fork. You know how when you strike it, it vibrates at a specific frequency? She believes that when we're authentic, we're kind of like that tuning fork. We operate at a higher frequency. And it's a frequency that resonates with positive energy and aligns us with our deepest desires. Now, before you write this off as just good vibes or something, think about those times you've been around someone who just radiates a certain energy. They draw you in. They seem to effortlessly attract good things into their life. Lyons argues that it's not just luck or chance. It's about aligning your inner self with your outer actions.
So it's more than just positive thinking then. It's about actually being true to those thoughts in how you live your life.
Right, yeah.
I can see that can get pretty tricky. I mean, we've all had those moments where we feel pressured to conform, to be someone we're not, to fit in or please other people.
Absolutely, and Lyons is really clear about this point. When we're inauthentic, we're basically putting up this barrier that prevents the right things from finding us. It's like we're wearing a mask. People might be drawn to the mask, but they're not connecting with the real you.
Yeah.
And that ultimately leads to unfulfilling relationships, jobs, even just situations that don't feel quite right.
I see what you mean, but isn't there a flip side to that? Sometimes people use being yourself as an excuse for bad behavior, right? Like, couldn't someone be authentically rude or inconsiderate?
Yeah.
Where's the line there?
That's a really great question, and it's something Lyons addresses directly. She emphasizes that true authenticity, it's not about forcing your beliefs on others. It's not about being reckless with other people's feelings or disregarding their boundaries. It's about being grounded in your own truth while respecting the boundaries and perspectives of those around you.
Okay, so there's a balance to strike. Being true to yourself while also being mindful of how your actions impact others. I'm starting to see how this goes so much deeper than just be yourself. It's like a whole philosophy, really.
Yeah. It really is. And one of the most interesting things Lyons talks about is that embracing authenticity requires confronting our ego. That part of us that wants to play it safe, stay comfortable, and avoid anything that might rock the boat. But to really step into our authentic selves often means stepping outside of that comfort zone.
So it's about pushing past those fears and insecurities then. Easier said than done, for sure. How does Lyons suggest we actually do that?
Well, she uses this really powerful analogy. She called us walking magnets. Her idea is that when we embrace our authenticity, we become these powerful forces, attracting people and experiences that match our unique vibration. It's like sending out a signal to the universe that says, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and then attracts
Okay, I see where the magnetism part comes in.
Yeah.
But what if someone's surrounded by people who just don't seem to vibrate on that same level? Does that mean they're stuck? Or is there something they can do to shift that dynamic?
And that's where things get really interesting, and that's exactly what we'll be unpacking in part 2 of this deep dive.
So we've been talking about this idea that authenticity works kind of like an internal magnet. It attracts the things that really resonate with who we are deep down. But at the end of part 1, we left off with a bit of a cliffhanger,
Yeah.
What if you're surrounded by people who, well, they just don't seem to be on that same wavelength as you? Does that mean you're stuck, or can you actually do something to change that dynamic?
Lyons says the first step is really about self-awareness. It's paying attention to those moments when you feel like there's a disconnect between what you're doing and how you're actually feeling.
I think we've all been there, right?
Right.
Like when you say yes to something, but you really want to say no, or you hold back your opinion because you don't want to cause any trouble.
Exactly. Those are some classic signs that you might be dimming your own light just to try and fit in. And Lyons really stresses that this isn't about blaming other people. It's about taking responsibility for your own energy and making choices that are truly aligned with your authentic self.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? Let's say you realize you've been holding yourself back in certain areas of your life. What's the next step?
Lyons encourages people to start small. Pick one area of your life where you want to be more authentic. It could be your relationships, your work, even your hobbies.
Okay, let's break that down a little. Let's say someone wants to be more authentic in their relationships. What are some actual steps they can take?
Lyons suggests something as simple as being more open and honest about your feelings. So instead of keeping things bottled up or trying to please everyone all the time, you start communicating your needs and your desires in a way that's clear but also respectful.
That makes sense, but what about setting boundaries? It can feel so awkward to suddenly start saying no to people you've always said yes to in the past.
Lyons talks about this idea of energetic boundaries, and it's not about building walls or shutting people out. It's about recognizing what drains your energy and what replenishes it, and then making choices that prioritize the things that light you up.
So it's about being mindful of how you're spending your time and who you're spending it with. Because in the end, those choices show what you really value, and maybe even what you're attracting into your life.
Precisely, and Lyons takes it even a step further. She suggests we get really intentional about the media we consume, the music we listen to, even the environments we choose to be in.
So it's like creating an external world that actually supports your inner authenticity. That's fascinating. But what about the workplace? It can be tough to be your true self in a professional setting where there are all these expectations and hierarchies.
Lyons argues that it's even more important to bring your authentic self to work. She gives the example of someone who's naturally creative, but they're stuck in a job that demands conformity. She says that stifling that creativity, it doesn't just make you unhappy, it actually blocks the flow of positive energy and opportunities that might be meant for you.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you have to dim your light to succeed, then you're going to attract situations that reinforce that belief. But if you bring your full self to the table, even if it's unconventional, you might be surprised by what happens.
Exactly. Lyons says that true success comes from aligning your work with your passions and values. She encourages people to find ways to express their unique skills and perspectives, even within those existing structures.
I love that. It's about finding those little cracks of light and letting your true self shine through. But what about those times when we just don't feel authentic? Like we understand the concept, but we're dealing with self-doubt or fear.
That's a perfect lead-in to the next key part of Lyons' teaching, and that's self-acceptance.
Okay, tell me more about that, because I think we all struggle with self-acceptance on some level. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about aligning our actions with our truth, making our environment work for us. But what about those times when, well, you just don't feel authentic, Like, we get the concept, but then there's that inner critic chiming in, saying we're not good enough, smart enough, whatever enough. How do you deal with that while also trying to embrace your true self?
That's such a crucial point, because Lyons really emphasizes that you can't have true authenticity without self-acceptance. It's about embracing every part of ourselves, the good, the bad, even those messy bits we'd rather keep hidden.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah.
It feels like we're constantly being told to strive for perfection, to become this ideal version of ourselves. Where do you even begin to accept yourself, flaws and all?
Lyons has some really practical techniques. First, she's a big advocate for challenging that negative self-talk, that voice in your head that's always putting you down. Start noticing it, and then consciously reframe those thoughts with kindness and compassion. It's like becoming your own best friend, offering yourself encouragement instead of criticism.
Okay, so it's not about ignoring those negative thoughts. It's about actively changing the conversation you're having with yourself. Do you have any examples of how to do that effectively?
Sure. Imagine you make a mistake at work, and that inner critic jumps in. It starts saying, see, you're incompetent, you'll never get this right. Lyons suggests that instead of getting caught in that spiral of negativity, ask yourself, what would I say to a friend who made this same mistake? Chances are you'd be understanding and supportive. You'd offer them encouragement, right? So why not offer yourself that same level of compassion?
That's a really interesting way to look at it, shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion. But what about those deeper insecurities, the ones that maybe you're ashamed of or embarrassed to even admit to yourself?
Lyons acknowledges that some wounds run deep, and she encourages people to seek professional help if they need it. But on a day-to-day level, she recommends focusing on your strengths. What are you good at? What lights you up? Celebrate those things, no matter how small they might seem. It helps to shift your focus away from what you're lacking and towards what you already possess.
Yeah, it's like giving yourself permission to shine, acknowledging the things you're proud of. But sometimes that feels almost like bragging, doesn't it? Like, shouldn't we be humble and downplay our accomplishments?
Lyons would argue that true humility isn't about denying your strengths. It's about recognizing them as gifts. And sharing those gifts with the world doesn't make them any less special. In fact, it can amplify them. When you embrace your talents and your passions, you naturally radiate a certain confidence, a magnetism that draws other people in.
It's like that saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. The more authentic you are, the more you attract people and opportunities that resonate with your true self.
Absolutely. And as we become more self-accepting, those limiting beliefs and fears, they start to lose their power over us. We become more comfortable taking risks, expressing ourselves creatively, pursuing the things that really light us up.
It's not just about attracting the right things into your life. It's about becoming the kind of person who's ready to receive those things. You become more open, more receptive to all the good things the universe has to offer.
Exactly. And Lyons leaves us with this incredibly powerful question. What if the key to unlocking our fullest potential is simply embracing our authentic selves? What if, by being true to who we are, we can attract the love, the success, the fulfillment we desire?
Wow. It's like authenticity creates this ripple effect,
Yeah.
impacting not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us.
It does. And as we embrace our true selves, we inspire others to do the same.
Right.
It creates a world where people feel safe to be vulnerable, to fully express themselves, to connect on a much deeper level.
That sounds pretty amazing. Well, it's been an incredible deep dive exploring the power of authenticity and how it can truly transform our lives. Thank you for joining us. And remember, the world needs your unique light.